Hello, my name's Sarita and I'm speaking to you today from Soulhenge, and I'm here to help you understand the truth about who you are. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about today was karma. What is karma and how can you clear karma in your daily life so you can experience more happiness and more clarity and more self-expression? And the reason I wanted to talk to you about karma is because whenever I talk to anybody about karma, I feel as if a lot of people have a great misconception about what it is. And karma is basically the universal law. It's an exact law of cause and effect. So what that means is what you put out comes back to you. It is not what you receive you put out, which is also a great misconception. It is what you put out comes back to you. And many people have this idea that if you do something wrong in your life, or somebody else does something wrong, there is some sort of great spiritual, divine retribution that will come back and get you tenfold. And that is simply not the case, because there is no one judging you in terms of karma. There's not a great God in the sky. Source consciousness doesn't judge you for what you do. It is simply an exact and universal law. And it's also a law that has no judgment or conditioned responses around what is right or wrong. And that's because when you're talking about source consciousness or God, there is no right or wrong. There is just experience. And you are a piece of source consciousness expressing itself in this third dimensional reality and having an experience so that you can remember who you are and evolve. And in that, there is only learning. There is no such thing as right or wrong. And this may seem a really hard concept for, people to grasp. But the fact of the matter is, right and wrong is a cultural construct that has been ingrained into us. We have lost the idea that there is only experience. And there can only be experience if you remember that you are a soul living in this third dimensional reality and that your soul is eternal. Your soul cannot die. You are merely having a tiny experience in this third dimensional reality in this body. And although the body dies, the soul never dies. And so there's no such thing as right or wrong, because in order for you to have an experience in this third dimensional reality, there has to be contrast, and we would label that contrast as right or wrong. But spirit would never label that contrast as right or wrong. It would just see it as variations of the whole. Because if you think about a stick, for example, and you're the stick, if you look at each end of the stick, they're different. One end is, you've got the two ends of the stick. It's a polarity, but the stick can only exist because it has two different ends. And that's why happiness cannot exist without your understanding what sadness is. Light cannot exist without dark. Feeling sated cannot exist if you've never known hunger, and so on and so forth. So as a spiritual being, when you can embrace the polarity of your existence and not think in terms of duality, which is that is right, that's wrong, and that's what has a judgment around it, then you begin to see that the law of karma is really one of exacting cause and effect. And it works just as much if you do something good as if you do something bad, because you are manifesting your reality in every single moment, because what you think and feel and act upon creates a vibrational frequency, and the unified field will always match that frequency with something that will be manifested into your reality, because the unified field is a mirror. That's the exactness of the law. So everything that you do has a cause and effect. What you do from the inside out creates your reality. So there's no one judging you, and there's no such thing as right or wrong in this third dimensional experience when you're talking about karma. Now, if that's the case, how can you heal karma in your life? Now, most people experience karma as a pattern, and that's because when you're experiencing a karmic pattern, you know, a karmic problem, and I'll give you an example so it makes sense, it seems to reoccur over and over again. And that's because when something has happened once, it kind of sets up a pattern for it to happen again and again. And the pattern is there so that you can see the pattern and take it as an opportunity to heal it and clear it. That's why the patterns exist. They're merely showing you what's going on so that you can see the gift in it. And the gift is the opportunity to heal the pattern. So I'm going to give you an example now. So let's say when you were 17, your boyfriend or girlfriend utterly betrayed you and slept with somebody else behind your back. And then you find when you're, 25, you have another relationship which ends really similarly. And then when you're 30, your best friend betrays you in a business deal. And then when you're 40, the house that you were going to buy, you get gazumped by somebody else. It feels like a betrayal by the owner. So you're experiencing a pattern of betrayal in your life, and people would call this a karmic pattern. How do you heal something like that? Well, there are two ways to heal a karmic pattern, in my opinion. And the first way is to take complete and utter responsibility for that pattern and understand that you have created it. And this is a hard concept for people to grasp as well, because, if I spoke to this person who was 17 and they said, you don't understand, I have been betrayed, I would say to them, you created that betrayal. And most people would be utterly horrified by being told something like that. But when you consider what is going on from the outside as coming from within you, then you begin to really see where this pattern has come from. So in the instant of the 17-year-old person, I would say to them, is there another time in your life where you betrayed somebody else? Okay, so I would get them to look at their life and to see if there was an incident, an incident that really stood out for them where they betrayed someone else. And it wouldn't necessarily need to be by, sleeping with somebody else. It wouldn't need to be in the same format, but they may have betrayed someone else in another way. And if they did find that pattern, then what I would get them to do in order to clear that karmic pattern would be to forgive themselves for what they had done, because forgiveness is the best way to clear a karmic pattern. And I will talk about forgiveness in a little while when I finish this bit. So basically, I would ask them to look and see if they'd betrayed somebody else ever. Okay. Now, and I would get them to clear that by forgiving themselves. And if they turned round back to me and they said, look, hand on heart, I feel as if I have never betrayed anyone else ever. What I would then get them to do is to look within themselves to find where they had betrayed themselves. Because without a doubt, there must have been a betrayal within to produce a betrayal without. And that's because everything that comes into your life is a vibrational match to what you are emitting. Nothing can come into your life unless you have called it in first. So I would get this person to look into their to their own life and see where they might be betraying themselves. And it could be anything. It could be something like they are self-sabotaging. So every time they're about to feel really happy in something, they self-sabotage. Or perhaps they are betraying their body by filling their body with toxins, and they're doing it really unconsciously and they're not thinking about themselves at all. Or perhaps they're betraying themselves with unloving thoughts, because every time you think an unloving thought about yourself, such as you're ugly, you don't deserve happiness, you'll never get that job, it's essentially a betrayal of your true spirit, because you're divine and you deserve everything and you're beautiful. So that would be a betrayal. So I would get that person to look deep within them to find the betrayal from whence this other betrayal, this vibrational match, came from. And if they couldn't find them, I would get them to go deeper and look harder, because absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that betrayal came from within them. And even if they had betrayed somebody else, which set up the betrayal, you know, for the boyfriend-girlfriend thing, they would not have betrayed somebody externally were they not betraying themselves internally, because you can't be what you don't think and feel. That's the nature of being a human being. So it must have come from within first. And so what you would do is you would go inside yourself and you would find the betrayal, or whatever it is, you know, the match of the karmic pattern that you're experiencing. And when you find that, you really need to be able to look at it without judging yourself. Source consciousness, you know, the divine would never judge you, and you are divine, and you need to let go of judging yourself. If you make a mistake towards yourself or towards somebody else, you need to be able to let that go. We all make mistakes. God, I make thousands of mistakes every single minute, and so does everybody else. And we need to make mistakes so that we can experience the contrast, so that we can begin to come into our true nature and really begin to evolve and understand who we are. So mistakes are amazing things when you observe them. So the next step is to find that thing that you have created, accept responsibility for it, and forgive yourself for it. And when you forgive yourself for that, you also need to forgive at the same time the other person who, in this case, betrayed you. Now, this is a sticking point for many people, because I often come across people when I'm doing my healings or my ceremonies or things like that who say, I could never forgive that person. You do not understand, because what they did to me was unforgivable. It was so awful, I could never forgive it. And the whole thing with forgiveness is it's not about condoning a behavior, and it's not about allowing that behavior to come in again. So if you forgive someone, you're not saying to them, I forgive you, you know, bring it on, do it again. What you're saying is, I forgive you so that behavior never shows up in my life ever again. And in doing that, you accept responsibility, because they would never have demonstrated that behavior towards you had you not demonstrated it to yourself first. And that's the incredible thing about forgiveness, because once you forgive and you understand that and you take the ultimate responsibility, drop victimhood and empower yourself for change, your life changes. And that vibration of, in this case, betrayal, is going to leave your energetic field, and you will never again experience a vibrational match of betrayal in your life, because you have let it go. And the whole thing about forgiveness is it leads to freedom. And it explains to you that you have a freedom of choice. And it's extraordinary forgiving someone, because you let them go and you let yourself go at the same time. And then you are free of that karmic pattern. And the more and more you can do this with every type of hurt that somebody else offers to you in your life, and you see it as a gift, the happier and the happier you will be. And yes, it is not easy. You know, sometimes, as I'm on this learning curve, sometimes, you know, I've been in a situation where I felt so hurt by what someone has done to me that I have literally had to sit with it for, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks, sitting with that pain daily, going, I know this has come from me, and I need to find its source so that I can heal it from the inside out, so that it doesn't happen to me again. And it's a hard road, you know. You have to stand up, take responsibility, and do the work in order to clear the patterns. But it's so worth it, because what happens is, and what I've discovered in my life, is that you become Happier and happier and happier the more you let go of victimhood, because the more you let go of victimhood, the more empowered you become and the more your life is yours as a creation. So that was a very long speech, and that's the first way that you can clear a karmic pattern. Now, the second way you can clear any karma, and it is kind of more easy and more difficult at the same time, so that's the the polarity of the situation, is you can learn to live in the present moment. Because when you exist in the present moment, nothing else exists from your past or from your future. And you are living absolutely creatively in the present moment. And you don't react or call anything in that belongs to the past, because you're living in the present moment. So it sounds really easy to live in the present moment, but actually it is a practice. It's something that you just need to do all of the time. And it's something that I do every single day myself, is I set myself up and I come into present moment awareness, and I try and hold that as much as I can throughout the day. But obviously I'm human and I've been conditioned to not live in the present moment. I've been conditioned to, have an unruly mind and live with my unconscious programming. So it's a constant practice to try and remember to stay in the present moment. And actually, I've got a YouTube video on my channel, which is incredible. It's called the Gym Self Present Moment Awareness Technique, and it is incredible for bringing you into the present moment. So if you can begin to come into the present moment and live in the present moment, which other people call being mindful, living your life mindfully, then you will find that there are no karmic patterns around you, that you drop all karmic patterns, because karmic patterns do not exist in the present moment. So there you go. That is my take on karma and how to heal it. So good luck removing karma from your life, and thank you very much for listening.